John Cameron Swayze.
Brett Huntley.
David Brink. John Chancellor.
The new Iraq. Outbreaks of violence streak across the Iraqi map today. Still, President Bush insisting elections will proceed on schedule. An NBC News investigation. This man was accused of slaughtering innocent civilians. So how could the UN keep him on the payroll working to stop genocide? Lifeline. The government says no for now to a testosterone patch for women, a controversial new way to raise a woman's sex drive, and there are new safety questions tonight. And a warning to parents about video games for toddlers. Do they really make your kids any smarter?
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. America's new reality tops our news tonight. U.S. troops on the ground in Iraq, the violence there as the scheduled election approaches. And news tonight of more changes in the Bush administration, including a new head of Homeland Security. First, though, to Iraq and the coming elections the administration has now staked so much on. The president made clear today he plans to see it through, even if that means more U.S. soldiers. But what if others on the ground in Iraq have different plans? We begin here tonight at the Pentagon, and NBC News correspondent Jim Miklashevsky. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. Pentagon officials consider these elections absolutely critical, not only to Iraq, but to the Bush administration's exit strategy, so American troops can at least start coming home sooner. Having just survived his own election battle, President Bush insisted today the January elections in Iraq must proceed on schedule.
First of all, the elections should not be postponed. It's time for the Iraqi citizens to go to the polls.
But this is the hard reality today in Iraq. In Baghdad, mortar attacks into and around the heavily protected Green Zone killed 2 Iraqis. To the north in Baquba, 2 city officials assassinated in cold blood. And as the election draws near, the level of insurgent violence is only expected to get worse. The U.S. is raising the number of American troops in Iraq by 12,000 to tighten election security. But under current plans, it will be Iraqi security forces who stand guard at the polls. U.S. military quick reaction teams will be kept at a reasonable distance, posted nearby the potential hotspots to respond to any threat. It's all part of an effort to create the perception the Iraqis are conducting these elections entirely on their own. U.S. military officials warn, however, that Iraq's security forces are not yet up to the task. And in many areas, the heavy presence of American troops could challenge the very legitimacy of Iraq's first democratic election.
There's a clear risk that Iraqis will see this as one more sign the United States is still calling the shots.
But today in Baghdad, a U.S. congressional delegation, both Republicans and Democrats, argued there still aren't enough American troops in Iraq to effectively fight and win the war.
We need more troop strength here. We should have had more at the beginning.
And so I hope after this election, we don't all of a sudden have Secretary Rumsfeld telling everybody again that we can actually draw down our forces.
In fact, some senior military officials now say the Pentagon made a serious mistake when it first failed to recognize the threat from Iraqi insurgents and then didn't order an aggressive counteroffensive much sooner. Brian?
Jim Miklashevsky at the Pentagon tonight. Jim, thanks. Rooting out those insurgents in Fallujah was hard work, and it took a tough fight that leveled much of that city when it was over. That must now be rebuilt. And that's the challenge facing U.S. Marines now in Fallujah. NBC's Richard Engel has their story.
A new mission in Fallujah. The same Marines who fought last month to rid the city of insurgents, now rebuilding it. For 10 days in November, Marines and soldiers attacked the city. This week, NBC News joined the Marines in Fallujah. We found it eerie, deserted. The only sign of life, stray animals. It smelled rotten, with decomposing bodies and trash, broken sewers and dust. Images of violence frozen in time. A barbershop interrupted. A candy store ransacked. There are streets in downtown Fallujah where every building has been condemned and must be torn down before people are allowed to return. Some commanders estimate it will be 6 months before basic services are restored. Today, there's no power. Water pipes are broken. This school flooded. Marines say only 5,000 people remain in the city. We met some taking refuge in a mosque. My family is gone. I stayed to protect my house. Now my house is gone. Why should I stay now? Asked this man. Already, the Marines have teams out surveying the damage. They brought these Iraqi engineers to salvage what they could at the main power station. It's a priority, with 250,000 people waiting to leave refugee camps and return to Fallujah. When they do, Marines will pay them up to $2,500 for damaged property or deaths. And they'll find new rules in the city. Identity card checks, a curfew, no cars, and no congregating.
Those rules will be carried by every single male who receives an identification card. It is a martial law environment. There will be deadly force authorized for certain infractions.
An environment unlikely to sit well with already resentful refugees. How will we greet the Americans in Fallujah, he asked, with guns and rockets. November's offensive did root out insurgents, but in a place where emotions run high. The question tonight is, will the refugees come back bitter or see their return as a new beginning? Richard Engel, NBC News, Fallujah.
For a look at all of this and late news from the Bush White House tonight, NBC News Washington Bureau Chief, moderator of Meet the Press, Tim Russert. Tim, where does all of this leave this administration?
Brian, the president clearly has drawn the line. These elections are going forward. The insurgents are going to do everything they can over the next 7 weeks to create more chaos and bloodshed in Iraq. The line's been drawn. And you heard a Democratic and Republican senator in Baghdad on the ground saying the administration should send more troops to Iraq.
Let's talk about intelligence, the 9/11 Commission. You had both chairs on Meet the Press last weekend. They would like their report codified, the new intelligence czar. If both parties, and the House and Senate, are for it, if the president's for it, if the commission's for it, why isn't it happening?
The Speaker of the House, Republican Dennis Hastert, wants a majority of the Republicans to be for it. If that bill was brought to the House floor tonight, Brian, it would pass. There are enough Democrats, Republicans combined. And so what the White House has to do, led by the president, is convince the House Republican leadership that the bill should be brought to a vote. The families of the September 11th victims are outraged by the delay. The Senate, Republicans and Democrats together are saying, let's pass this consensus bill. It's going to take the president to be involved personally to bring it about.
And Tim, we've been saying here tonight, there's late word out of the White House. The replacement for Tom Ridge, who has been this nation's first and only Secretary of Homeland Security, who announced his intention to leave just yesterday.
Bernard Kerik, the former commissioner of police of New York City under Rudy Giuliani. He went to Iraq for several months, Brian, to help create a Iraqi police force. He came back and appeared with the president at the Rose Garden, praised the president's leadership in Iraq. The president was enormously impressed by that. Number two, Rudy Giuliani, who emerged as the primary surrogate for the president in this past campaign, said, I don't want a job, but I want you to give Bernard Kerik a job, and that's what's going to happen.
Tim, thanks. We'll look for you Sunday on Meet the Press. And another pick by the president for his cabinet today. He has chosen Governor Mike Johanns to be the new agriculture secretary, replacing Ann Veneman, who resigned just last month. Johanns is the 54-year-old son of a dairy farmer and two-term Republican governor. He's traveled widely promoting American farm products on trade missions to Japan, China, Singapore, and a half dozen other nations. And there is one resignation to report. Late today, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, former Missouri Senator John Danforth, stepped down after holding the job for less than 6 months. His name had been mentioned as a possible replacement for Colin Powell as Secretary of State. That job instead went to Condoleezza Rice. Senator Danforth said to be retiring from public life. Now, an NBC News exclusive tonight. With the United Nations under so much scrutiny these days, tonight there's another question. How is it that a man accused of taking part in multiple murders, the slaughter of innocent civilians in Rwanda, could have remained on the UN payroll working to stop genocide? Our report tonight from NBC News senior investigative correspondent Lisa Myers.
The carnage was horrific. 800,000 Tutsis slaughtered in 1994 by rampaging Hutus in Rwanda. Among those alleged to have done the killing, this man, an employee of the United Nations in Rwanda, a Hutu named Calixte Mbarushimana. Today, Mbarushimana remains a free man living in Paris, but there are troubling questions about his conduct in Rwanda a decade ago and the actions of the United Nations.
They killed on his orders. They manned roadblocks. They killed people. They got rewarded with cows and beer.
Tony Gregg investigated Mbarushimana for the International Criminal Tribunal in Rwanda and says eyewitnesses directly linked him to more than 30 murders, including killings of fellow UN workers. In witness statements obtained by NBC News, one eyewitness says Mbarushimana shot a man in the head as he was standing up. So what did the UN do? After learning of the allegations in 1999, the UN kept Mbarushimana on its payroll. In fact, when he was arrested for genocide, he was working for the UN in Kosovo on a project to stop genocide.
I am innocent of any of the allegations.
In an exclusive interview with NBC News, Mbarushimana condemns genocide and denies wrongdoing.
No, I have not murdered anybody. I have not participated in the ordering of killing of anybody.
The charges against Mbarushimana eventually were dismissed. Prosecutors say the evidence wasn't strong enough. Investigators dispute that and say prosecutors decided to focus instead on leaders of the genocide and considered Mbarushimana a mid-level figure.
The decision not to prosecute him was made on grounds of expediency, not legal grounds, however the UN wants to dress it up. He killed many, many people.
Then this year, investigators were further outraged when a UN tribunal ruled that Mbarushimana had been treated unfairly because he was not rehired after charges were dropped. The tribunal awarded him 13 months of back pay. Awarding back pay to a man accused of genocide and of murdering UN employees seems absurd.
It certainly does. But again, the tribunal considered that this person had not been proven guilty. And in fact, he hasn't.
Many UN officials are furious and embarrassed, and some investigators are looking for some way to bring Mbarushimana to trial. Lisa Myers, NBC News, New York.
Up next, as we continue this Thursday night, NBC News In Depth, the FDA weighs in on a testosterone patch designed to help women. And later, video games being marketed as good for kids' development. But are they? Tonight, what parents need to know.
He said, "Ciao, baby." My lips are so chapped it hurts to laugh. You should get this.
New Neosporin lip treatment.
With this, cold sores don't hurt. I don't get cold sores. Think what it'll do for seriously chapped lips.
New Neosporin lip treatment.
No, it doesn't hurt to laugh.
I knew women lose bone mass, but who knew it could start as early as our 30s? I'm already 34, so I switched to One A Day Women's.
One A Day Women's is a complete multivitamin with more than twice the calcium of Centrum.
I need to stay strong.
One A Day Women's.
People are always looking for all-natural ways to fight colds and flu, like drinking licorice root tea, or sipping horehound soup, or even downing a cayenne pepper toddy. Of course, they could just drink Florida orange juice.
Get the nutrients your immune system needs every day. Florida orange juice. Healthy, pure and simple.
Dateline Friday, a young girl disappears. Why won't this woman tell the family what she knows? Dateline Friday, 8/7 Central on NBC.
What turned Patty Davis from Rebel Daughter into Ronald Reagan's biggest fan? She tells what it was really like growing up Reagan. Hardball, tonight on MSNBC.
NBC Nightly News, winner of this year's coveted Emmy Award for Outstanding Investigative Reporting of a Business News Story. NBC News, America's news leader.
There is health news to report to you tonight. New numbers from the Department of Health and Human Services. They show just what a medicated nation America is these days. According to this study out today, almost half of all Americans, 44%, were taking at least one prescription drug in the period from 1999 to 2000. That's compared to just 39% in the 1988 to 94 time period. 1 in 6 Americans took 3 or more prescription drugs, and that's at the end of the last decade, remember. The most prescribed drugs these days include cholesterol and diabetes medications and antidepressants, which all brings us to NBC News In Depth tonight, a hormone patch that could help women suffering from low sex drive. Its maker, Procter & Gamble, wants to make the patch to women to meet certain medical criteria. It could be a huge moneymaker for them, but as NBC News chief science correspondent Robert Bazell tells us, an FDA advisory panel today had some other ideas.
No.
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 Late today, the panel of experts advising the FDA voted against approving the testosterone patch for women because of what it said was insufficient safety data. But the panel did conclude the patch, called Intrinsa, increases women's sexual desire.
Significant increases in numbers of sexual episodes and in numbers of orgasms.
It was an emotional hearing. Several experts argue that millions of women desperately need treatment.
Low sex drive is the most common sexual dysfunction reported, and it is the most difficult to treat in our practices.
Rosalind Washington, who was a volunteer in the clinical trial of the testosterone patch, said she testified because she wanted to get the problem out in the open.
I did notice at certain points that, the desire had picked up tremendously.
What did your partner think about it?
Oh, ecstatic, of course. I mean, when, things had been next to nil at that point. So, it was certainly a welcome change, no question.
On the other side, experts said that while men's sexual problems can often be solved with a pill like Viagra, women often have different needs.
But they also talk about a little time, a little romance. They're overworked, they're underpaid, they're under a lot of pressure and stress.
The panel's biggest worry was the experience with the female hormones, estrogen and progestin, which ended up increasing risk for breast cancer and heart disease.
The safety concerns are based on the fact that this is a hormone. This is not a drug like Viagra, where you take the pill and 24 hours later it's out of your system.
The FDA usually follows the recommendations of its advisory panels. The manufacturer, Procter & Gamble, might decide to test the patch more extensively and try again to win approval. Today's testimony indicates the potential market is enormous. Robert Bazell, NBC News, Washington.
And up next, a different marketing pitch. Video games that build brain power in kids, or is it brainwashing?
Home sweet home. Time for a fresh new look. I say start at the top with Excellence Cream from L'Oreal. Absolutely beautiful color that's hassle-free. So creamy rich it doesn't drip. Nothing protects better. And the color? Guaranteed beautiful every time. And nothing covers grays better than Excellence. Assuming you have any. Thinking makeover? Start at the top with triple protection Excellence Cream from L'Oreal Paris. Because you're worth it.
Fix It Incomplete for great fit and strong, long hold. Life with more bite.
If you have a cold and high blood pressure, you should know that decongestants in these medicines can raise your blood pressure. So why take them? Take decongestant-free Coricidin HBP. Powerful relief that won't raise your blood pressure.
We're out of water. That means I can't mix my fiber drink or take fiber pills.
No problem. Try new Benefiber chewables. Tasty orange cream. No water needed.
We're safe!
New Benefiber chewables makes taking fiber easier.
If you use Imitrex, here's a special offer just for you. Save up to $60 on 6 refills of prescription Imitrex just by calling 1-800-Imitrex or visiting our website at imitrex.com. Don't wait to save. Call or visit today.
Josh is home from college with a lesson on baking frozen pizza. Presto Pizzazz Pizza Oven. Mom uses her oven. He's already cooking because there's no preheating. Upper Element cooks the toppings while the lower crisps the crust for the best pizza ever.
Pizzazz.
From Presto.
How do I look?
Like you could catch dinner.
Maybe I will.
And maybe not.
Progresso Rich and Hearty. Big pieces of meat and vegetables make it our thickest and chunkiest ever.
I never really liked fish anyway.
Susan Macy is getting more from her vitamin C. The advanced protection of ester C. Advanced because it's the only vitamin C with metabolites. Advanced because it's readily absorbed. So it's not surprising that Susan thinks some other people should be getting more from their vitamin C too. Ester C. Are you getting advanced protection from your vitamin C? And now look for new Ester E.
'Tis the season for the Toyota Swingin' Christmas Concert Series. Harry Connick Jr., Chris Isaac, Clay Aiken, and more. Later in December and only on Today.
All along, he's been saying it isn't true. He didn't use drugs to enhance his performance on the baseball field. But now grand jury testimony by New York Yankees first baseman Jason Giambi is reportedly telling a very different story. By his own account under oath, Giambi reportedly admitted he not only used hormone injections, creams, and mouth drops for at least 3 seasons, but he also injected himself with human growth hormone. Giambi testified he got several different steroids from the trainer of San Francisco Giants slugger Barry Bonds, who has also denied using the drugs. Now to the controversy over interactive video games designed for toddlers. They are hot sellers, but are they truly educational as their names suggest, or is it just a phrase for marketing? In partnership with the Wall Street Journal tonight, here is NBC's Tom Costello.
They claim it turns game time into brain time.
You'll never get into college if you don't play your video games.
Manufacturers say their new video game is flying off the shelves, putting joysticks into the hands of toddlers. An interactive Scooby-Doo and Winnie the Pooh helping to teach colors, shapes, ABCs, and 1, 2, 3s.
It's a great way for children who learn in different ways to take another approach at learning either their numbers or their letters.
With bright colors and oversized buttons, the new V-Smile is the latest entry in a very competitive toy business. Each year, Americans spend $10 billion on video games. Now, new games dubbed educational are targeting kids as young as 3.
It's appealing to the parent who doesn't want their child to become a couch potato, who wants them to be actively involved in what they're doing.
But pediatric psychiatrists don't buy the pitch. Experts continue to warn that toddlers who spend too much time in front of a television can later develop problems focusing and paying attention. And despite the wonders of modern technology, no amount of screen time should ever be a substitute for that critical human-to-human FaceTime.
There's no redeeming value whatsoever, absolutely zero, for children in the first 3 years of life.
Renowned child psychiatrist Stanley Greenspan says screen time for toddlers can actually be harmful by overstimulating a child's brain and not providing the real human interaction children need to develop their reasoning and social skills.
What I see over and over again is that the less interactive time a child has, the more problems they have with attention, with impulsivity, with mood control.
Based on years of research, Greenspan recommends children under 2.5 should have no TV or video game time. For ages 2.5 to 4, no more than half an hour a day, and for kids older than 4, just 45 minutes a day. Still, the makers of V-Smile say if a child is going to have TV time,
It's more appropriate that they use their TV time doing something that's constructive.
the issue for parents, whether that time is better spent with them. Tom Costello, NBC News, New York.
And we're back in a moment with a few thoughts on a new era.
Experience a deep cleaning unlike any other. It's the Sonicare difference. With patented sonic technology, it reaches deep between teeth and along the gum line. No wonder it's the most used and recommended by dental professionals. Stop brushing. Start Sonicare.
Cutting down on carbs, huh?
Yeah.
You know, you could be cutting down on fiber, too. But with these Metamucil capsules, you can get more of your daily fiber with 0 net carbs.
Wow.
Cutting carbs? Keep the fiber with Metamucil capsules.
What makes CVS Pharmacy the leading drugstore in America? Well, with the Extra Care Card, our customers got back over $1 billion in savings and rewards last year. CVS Pharmacy. Expect something extra.
I'm Mark McGrath. Next, Extra meets the Fockers, and Barbra Streisand's talking one-on-one, only with us. Why was Ben Stiller nervous about talking to Babs? Why does Gwyneth's mom love Julia Roberts' new baby names? Plus Danny's big scene on Joey and Leo's obsession with Howard Hughes. Extra's next.
Tonight, a new era begins on this broadcast, but not without a word about the era that ended last night when our friend, mentor, and leader signed off after more than 2 decades on this broadcast. He has allowed me to sit in this chair in his absence for the last 10 years, and now hopefully many years more. For those of us fortunate enough to have shared a newsroom and a calling with Tom Brokaw, it was not quite the same around here today. While we will see him around here, and so will you, after the most carefully planned vacation in American history, he leaves us as stewards of the broadcast he presided over and shaped on a daily basis. It is now our job from this day forward to endeavor each evening to put the finest work of this organization on the air. We can do that best by working harder than anyone else, just the way Tom did for so many years. I stand on the shoulders of great people at NBC News. Some are household names, but most are not. It is an honor to work with all of them. Without them, and most importantly, without my own family, this dream that started in a small town and in this great nation would not be coming true tonight. Without you watching our daily effort, none of this would be worthwhile. So thank you for watching. We'll continue to work each evening to earn and preserve your loyalty. It means so much to us to have you with us as we continue a great tradition starting tonight. That is our broadcast for this Thursday night, December 2nd, 2004. I'm Brian Williams, reporting tonight from New York. Good night.
Nightly News is a presentation of NBC News. More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.